Welcome back to Close Up. The education funding debate in New Hampshire is measured in decades, not years. The Claremont decisions are now far enough in the past that students of those days are now the parents of students today. But now, this perennial top issue is back in court again, and we have a new study that shows some very interesting trends when it comes to spending on schools. Here this morning to discuss are Drew Klein from the Josiah Bartlett Center on Public Policy and Zach Sheehan from the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project. Thank you both for joining us, gentlemen.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for having us.
So, Zach, let's start with you. In this case that's in court right now, Conval, as this issue returns to the courtroom, essentially, what they're trying to say is essentially that the state aid is not enough, that, you know, what the state provides in adequacy to the districts doesn't go far enough. In fact, is a third of what it should be. How do they make this case, and do you think they're right?
Yeah, so there's a number of elements to this case, largely focused on what you're pointing out, that the amount of funding coming from the state just is not enough. And to be clear, it's, you know, they're focusing on a lot of pieces that they believe, the school districts believe, are mandated by the state or federal government, and just these kind of basic things to provide an adequate education. Things like transportation, school nurses, upkeep of facilities that are not covered either in part or at all by state funding. And it's about $3,800 per student comes from the state, comes from the state to every student. They're arguing that should be closer to $10,000, so pretty far off. And yeah, we think that a lot of the pieces of that argument are correct. And if you look at how much it actually costs to educate students in New Hampshire, it's closer to $19,000. So there's still a big chunk there that they're not even touching.
Right, and this, the trial, if you watch it, it's very technical. There's not a lot of a few good men moments where it's like, you know, did you order the code red of school funding? That's not happening here. But Drew Klein, in your study, you know, just coming out now in this last week, what did you find about the trends of school funding in New Hampshire at the state and the local level?
Yeah, so we found that a lot of the talk that people hear in New Hampshire over the last couple of decades is that funding's been cut, right? And we looked at the actual funding levels and found that that's not true. In fact, from 2001 to 2019, New Hampshire lost 30,000 public school students. But total state, local, and federal spending combined on public school districts went up by $1.5 billion. When you adjust for inflation, that's $937 million above the inflation rate. So 30,000 students down, spending up by almost $1 billion. Now, you got to break that down. The local government spending doubled in that time frame, 101% increase in local spending. The state spending went down slightly, so a large part of that state decline was losing those 30,000 students because the state funds are on a per pupil basis. But when you adjust for inflation, there was a slight decline in the state level of spending over that time. So we're putting out the study just so people will have a baseline level of understanding of where we've actually been, because a lot of the news reporting on this in your local community is just this year's budget, and it doesn't put it in context. And so we also found that most of that increase in spending went to hiring staff. When you look at the school spending and staff hires in New Hampshire, we added 3,300 staff to K-12 public education in New Hampshire. Public universities, we only added about 470 some employees in that 20 years. All other state and local government combined, only 300 and some employees. So the total state and local government employment went up in New Hampshire outside of education about 1/10 of what public K-12 education employment went up.
It's very interesting. And Zach, what did you think about seeing this study? Essentially, the trends are different from the state and local level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that anyone who's been following this wouldn't be surprised by that. And, you know, Drew just mentioned specifically that, yeah, if you look at the aggregate and kind of like the headline of the report that they put out, you know, looking at data through 2019, yeah, on average, and the total spending did go up. But, you know, the specific part that we go around the state talking to people about is that who is paying for that is very important. And, you know, that's the state government, as Drew just mentioned, their funding actually, when adjusted for inflation, went down. And so another way to look at this same exact data is over the past 20 years, communities, time and time again through their budget process, where they vote locally on the budget and or for local representatives that vote on that budget, they voted to increase their own taxes to support their local public schools, where the vast majorities of our students go, despite the fact that state funding went down when adjusting for inflation.
And Drew, you know, at the Josiah Bartlett Center, you're always looking for efficiencies.
Yeah.
Where can the efficiencies be found here, or is this one of these? Is this why this problem is so hard to solve?
Yeah, it's a really difficult problem. First of all, you got to look at the total spending. We spend $3.3 billion total, right, in New Hampshire, roughly, on public education. About $2.3 billion of that is at the local level. But so the Josiah Bartlett Center, our argument is a little bit of both sides are wrong. because we don't have a market where we empower consumers to choose where they want to spend their education dollars, we have a very difficult time figuring out how much adequate education actually should cost, right? So all we have is what we know we spend and what the state's contribution to that is. But we don't know what it would cost if we had a competitive market to create those efficiencies in spending. So that's kind of where the Josiah Bartlett Center is putting out this information to say, here's what we spend, here's what voters have done, and they've chosen to do this, but we don't have any market mechanism in there to create those efficiencies that might restrain that cost growth over time.
And the Claremont decisions are viewed as landmarks, but it's the legislature that ultimately has to act here. You know, in negotiations, you might over-ask, you know, and say, well, here's the number we're thinking of to get something a little bit less. But Zach, in this court case, this is an exacting process. They didn't just pull that nearly $10,000 per pupil number out of a hat. So if that's the number, how on earth does the state pay for that?
That's a really good question. And, you know, two pieces of that, you know, go back to, I think, there's a lot of different mechanisms, right? We have, you know, I know in New Hampshire, and I guess this touches a little bit on why this has been such a long-term problem, talking about taxes, talking about large-scale changes to our revenue sources is pretty politically scary for both parties, and has been for a long time in New Hampshire. So I think the first part of that is like actually coming to the table to look at what could some different revenue sources be. How do we do that in a way that makes sure that who's paying is equitable and fair? I mean, currently, right now, middle-class people are paying about 6% of their income towards local property taxes in general, where folks making above $500,000 only pay about 2%. So it's not that we don't have taxes and don't have sources of revenue in the state, it's that the people that are paying, by and large, are the folks that don't have the income to be able to afford that. And so I know that's not a specific answer about like, what's the one tax that's gonna fix all this, right? I don't have that one specific golden bullet, but we have the data to look into that. We could be putting out studies that really look into what are the revenue generating capabilities of different taxes in ways that, how do we shift that to make sure that someone living in Portsmouth on a fixed income doesn't get harmed by a change, right? But instead, we're spending all this time, the state's spending a lot of money on bringing lawyers from out of state into 4 school districts to say, what's the exact number? And then how are you going to pay for that? As opposed to saying, we as a Department of Education, we as a state have a lot of data. We could be looking at this and coming up with some numbers. Does $8,000 work? Does $10,000 work? What does that provide? Looking for efficiencies in the way that schools could do that.
I want to ask you a follow-up question that Drew will get to answer too. To what extent do you believe money is the defining factor in a quality education?
I think it plays a significant role. And I think it plays a significant role specifically for for students that have different specialized needs. We've had a significant increase in the number of students that our school districts serve that come from low-income families, that have special education services. And we know, and there's studies all over the country that prove and show this, that when funding is targeted towards students who have those higher needs, their access to an opportunity for an education dramatically increases. There's been court cases around the state, around the country, that prove this and look at different aspects of that. Funding's not the only answer, but pretending that funding is not the answer and is not causing a problem, it doesn't have these deep inequities, I think is what perpetuates this issue.
Drew, your thoughts on that same question?
Yeah, so look, in New Hampshire, again, from our study from 2001 to 2019, we have the same level of students in poverty. We actually have fewer kids in the public schools who have special needs, although the percentage is higher. But Zach's right that targeting aid where it's most needed is a big part of this answer. There is a minimum level of funding that would be necessary to provide an adequate education. I don't think anybody disagrees about that. What we're trying to do is figure out what that minimum level is. And the difficulty in figuring that out, as we pointed out before, is we don't have a market mechanism to help create efficiencies, to help determine a price. So all we have is the state saying, here, do these things. They're putting mandates on, and it's a bureaucratic system, and the bureaucrats and the legislators are trying to figure out what that sweet spot is. But let me give you an example. So the state says you have to give kids the skills for English. The state also passed a law saying that we have to do reading recovery. Well, we now know, decades later, reading recovery doesn't work. There are lots of studies showing that it's ineffective, but we have a state law saying we have to do it. Those things don't match up. So we have a requirement that kids have to get skills in math. Well, I talked to a superintendent not long ago who found a way to improve his math scores with simple flashcards. How much does that cost, right? Because we don't have a competitive system for determining these prices, we don't know what the actual number is.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it all turns out. But thank you, gentlemen, both of you, for your expertise today. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
And right.